And we are live. Hey, I'm Rob, and this is Tellman, and we're going to talk about anything.
That's right. That's right. So, Rob, how do you pronounce your last name?
Anspach.
Anspach.
Yeah.
Sounds very foreboding.
Yeah, very German.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
So,
So, go ahead.
earlier I was watching, I guess, one of your videos about staying focused.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I decided to do that one earlier today. I've had several of the same conversation I've found over and over and over again. And when I start getting frustrated that I have the same conversation with people over and over and over again, I try my best to make a video about it, make it easier on me next time. It's some leg, save the time.
So how do you stay focused when social media becomes a distraction?
Yeah, well, you know what? I was distracted long before social media. I was distracted before the internet existed. I'm not that old, but I am the first generation to have email in high school. Unless you went to like some crazy tech school or something.
Right.
I graduated in 1995 from high school, and so I liked computers from a very early age, but I've had ADD since before that. And so I understand the distraction temptation. It's why it's a topic that hits close to home.
Yeah.
And what it comes right down to is the way that I focus is as a result of years of completely screwing this up and not understanding the importance of it. It's almost, now I focus out of desperation. I don't know about you. I have two kids. We may be interrupted during this little interview. One is 5 and one is 10. And my wife, Jody, this is her one night per week to actually go out, and she's at her writer's group, for a little personal freedom.
Yeah.
And so this is my, daddy kids night where I'm hanging with the kids. They're playing with the hamsters in the living room, and I'm hoping that it's all going to go according to plan, right? But there's a lot to juggle, and I only have 2 kids. I know some Mormon guys with like 23 kids, and I have no idea how they possibly accomplish anything. It's insane. But
I'm not Mormon, but I do have 6 kids, a grandson.
That's crazy. It's crazy. 6?
6. My oldest just turned 28, and my youngest is 12. Yeah. I mean, I graduated high school in 1987. So I'm a little older, but
yep.
I think when it comes to being an entrepreneur, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for probably 25 years.
Yeah.
I think we studied under the same mentors, Joe Polish, Dan Kemp.
Yeah.
And we've been around the block a long time. But, I think one of the things that I see about you is that, you do hypnotism and you're kind of, you're the poster child for ADD. I mean, we get that, but I think that you've taken on adventures that most entrepreneurs will never do. I remember years ago, you ran across the United States barefoot.
That's true. I didn't make it the whole way, but I made a pretty solid attempt, and we raised a lot of money for homeless youth in the process, right? So, and that was while I only had 1 child and haven't really figured out what that meant yet, I want to point out. So, here's what I'll say is I've been a serial entrepreneur since I was 19. I started my first business on my first date with my now wife, Jody. It's Tellman Salsa, like chips and salsa, right? And I had long blue hair and a big crazy beard and a nose ring and an eyebrow ring and the whole shebang. And I've started and failed at many businesses since then. And I've had a few that turned into $1 million or multi-million-dollar businesses. But most of them landed face down in the mud and stayed there. I think they all made a little money. And by a little, I mean a little. I mean like minimum wage college student money. You know what I'm saying? But what I found was when we really started taking off, my entire business, the first big success that I had was in the training of internet marketing oddly enough, which I was terrible at. And I started interviewing all these people because I sucked at it so bad. And this was before the days of podcasts and everything. And so I did a 80-part interview series back in 2004, where I interviewed everybody that I could find that would talk to me, that would answer the phone or return my call or my email, on the topic of email marketing and list building. And that's how I learned how to do that. When I really focused my products and my services on email marketing and list building, and I really focused on finding people who wanted to build their email list and use their email list to grow their business, that was a very, very, very focused topic. And as the business became more and more focused, I was able to not just have myself focused on it, but I was able to build a large team of 35 people that were all focused on a singular goal. And because the group mind, the hive mind, works radically different than the individual mind, in my experience. It's much harder to get a group of people to shift super quickly, right? But it's very easy to get an individual to quickly shift gears. And so when we focused, we were able to quickly multiply our income. And as soon as I quickly multiplied my income, I multiplied the number of irons I had in the fire. And pretty soon I had 3 nonprofits, and I had, five different companies that were set up based on lawyers' recommendations for different this and that. And then I had, this going on over here and this going on over here, and this publishing company that produced the content that this other company sold. It was ridiculous. I had 35 people. And I had all these businesses. The businesses weren't related. And I started looking at the metrics on the different businesses. And what I found was basically for every individual business that served a different market, I essentially needed a new staff of 5 people. And that was a digital internet-based info marketing business. I needed a full-time copywriter. I needed some sort of a rock-solid full-time traffic guy. I needed a customer support guy or gal. I needed a tech guy, right? And there's some kind of project manager who could rally the troops and drive new initiatives forward. And at one point I had a attention deficit disorder info marketing business that just sold hypnosis and NLP stuff for ADD. I had my internet marketing training business. I had my barefoot running nonprofit. I had a barefoot running info marketing business. I had another personal development, self-improvement, spiritual info marketing business that sold astral projection stuff that was more spiritual and metaphysical. And I was trying other stuff on the side, in my free time. And I'm like, why is only one of these profitable? And so I still struggle with this idea of focus and staying focused for multiple years. As I get older, I find that my focus tolerance is increasing, which I'm pretty stoked about. But it's not a matter of why you need to focus. It's a matter of if you're not making 10 grand a month yet, if you're not making 10 grand a month yet in your business, I'm sorry, but you just have too many irons in the fire, because anybody can make 10 grand a month selling turtle shells.
Yeah.
Like, if you just zoom in on it and go full force. But if you can make 10 grand a month doing something, really, if you think about it, is there a reason you can't make 100 grand a month doing something? Mm-hmm. Probably the same thing. In most cases, most people would say, oh, well, if you're at that point, you're just focused on your marketing and you're focused on growing it, of course you could do that. Well, if you're making 100 grand a month, that's $1 million a year. That's a good start. Yeah. And,
honestly, I found that the first 10,000 a month was the hardest.
It is, because you get in your own way and you do all this stupid crap, make all these lame excuses because you haven't learned how to think like an entrepreneur yet instead of like an employee. And yeah, so what I would say is it's not a matter of, should you focus? The reality is you're going to have to try several things in order to get traction. And there's a difference between staying focused and trying a bunch of things. Because you can be focused on trying a bunch of things in rapid succession until you get a pulse. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. That's okay. But when you get a pulse, realize it's going to take you and a small team of people to get that business up to 10 grand a month and then up to $1 million a month. And you can do that. But like, if you want to start another business, you're going to need a whole nother staff of another 5 people, and you're going to have a real hard time pulling that off. And that, again, that's a completely digital info based business where you don't even have to ever talk to anybody, mm-hmm. And so My recommendation is simply, if you do focus, you'll make one mistake, you'll learn from it, you'll improve, and then you'll make a smarter mistake. But if you have 5 businesses or 2 businesses, you're going to be thinking about the same constructs mentally, and you're going to make the same mistakes twice. And it's going to take you twice as long to make the same mistakes twice, and that's 4 times as long.
Right.
Why would you do that to yourself? It's retarding your ability to grow as an entrepreneur and business owner. You're going to screw everything up, and you're going to stay stuck under your glass ceiling for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is, if you're ADD, if you're creative, if you have a million ideas, if you're plagued with inspiration, then do your best to stay inspired on the biggest idea that has the biggest chance of making the most money in the shortest period of time. Okay? The quicker you get traction, the better, and the better your ideas will become as you really start to grow and start to build something. So, believe me, the bigger a business gets, the more complicated it gets, and you're going to have all sorts of new stuff you have to think about that you've never even considered before. So that's my advice on focus. It's going to get more confusing.
You built, I think, your reputation on email marketing. Now, how does one still gather emails in a social media digital age?
Well, I was lucky in that I thought that I realized a bunch of years ago, 15 years ago, whatever it was, that email was the least common denominator in internet marketing. I kind of looked at email as the glue that holds the internet together.
Right.
And there are lots of different perspectives on this, and that's cool. But my perspective is this: various social media platforms come and go, and various social media platforms and their flexibility and willingness and ability to allow marketers to scale and grow their business also ebbs and flows. And so an example of this is the different points in Google AdWords when they've been very direct response marketing friendly and very direct response marketing adverse. It's gone up and down to the point where, back in the day, you said one wrong word and you're banned for life, and then and they were doing that for years. You had a squeeze page and you could never get on Google again. You were toast. Mm-hmm. And then Facebook came in, and Facebook didn't have any rules,
right?
Right? And so everybody went hog wild with Facebook, and it was awesome. And Facebook took all of Google's advertising money, and Google was all upset about it. And they decided to actually put some effort into building a team of people to interface with people who wanted to use Google AdWords, and now they could understand why marketers do things the way they do, and how much more effective it is. And now Google AdWords has become much more flexible, as Facebook for a while became very stringent, and now Facebook is opening back up again to try not to be so constricted. And so those are 2 examples of the behemoths of the giants of the industry, but the same is true of all the smaller guys because they follow suit.
Right.
And so whether what I say is that social media is free in terms of it doesn't cost you money, for people who are good socially and are good with technology at the same time. Mm-hmm. I found that social media doesn't make an anti-social person any more social. I don't tend to be great at social media. I'm getting better at it, I think, but it's not my strongest suit by any stretch of the imagination. I'm a regular, I always put my foot in my mouth in the conversation, and I just learned this at a very young age, and I'm cool with it, So it makes for a much more interesting conversation when you say something very awkward and off-putting.
Well, I've learned that, even getting on live video is that I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to stutter. I'm going to stammer. And you know what? People have to accept me for who I am, and I'm not going to edit it. I don't care. I'm just going to keep moving on.
That's right.
And if they want to correct me, they correct me. I can't allow someone to belittle me.
That's right. But it will happen, and it will happen both intentionally and unintentionally, right? One of the downside, especially of comments, is that You can't ever read tone.
Right.
I mean, emojis kind of help, but like tone is really hard to read. And I remember we made a rule in my company where nobody, when we were large enough for it to matter, nobody could send an email if they were feeling emotional. If you felt emotional about a situation, you had to make a phone call. That's it. No emotional emails. Emotional emails were forbidden because you can't read things like sarcasm. You can't figure out whether somebody's scowling at you or smiling at you while they're saying something, and it can cause a lot of miscommunication. So the point is that social media is great, but most social media platforms that have been around for a while also have an advertising engine. Mm-hmm. And I find that most social media platforms tend to treat you better and give you more mojo if you spend a little money with them. Shocker. Okay. Yeah. So the point is, have a good social media presence on a couple of different platforms that you work well with, or that a rock solid employee or perhaps a partner in your business is really in love with. I recommend that you start spending money as soon as possible and measuring your ROI on it so that you have the ability to use that social media to scale. And at least in my world, email is king. So the way you gather emails is the same way that you did 15 years ago, which is you put up a squeeze page and you give away something awesome. Right. That relates to what you're going to sell. And these days, doing hypnosis, I do a lot of wealth hypnosis and money mindset stuff with entrepreneurs. So I regularly give away free hypnosis sessions. Not that complicated, whatever you do, it's a taste test. Yeah. And I do it through webinars. I do it through videos. Those are usually the two live webinars, evergreen webinars, and videos is how I usually give away sessions. And people will happily enter their name and email address in order to get something of value. And a really cool way of doing that these days is by creating them as a member in a membership site that you might have, where that's a lead in to all your other stuff. And so they can kind of see what's going on the inside once they're in. So I've been doing a lot more of that lately too. But email, in my experience, is still king because it really does transcend most of the other social media platforms. Because it's moving so quickly, there are always examples of things that break the rule, mm-hmm. but they don't usually stick around that long. At the end of the day, I look at the social media platforms that are out there as advertising vehicles for conveying a message in a new and unique way. Mm-hmm. And you can't learn every language, just like you can't use every social media platform. Some right. people are better in certain elements. And so if you're giving away something of value, whether it's a trial membership to your software, or whether it's a taste test of a meditation or instructional course that you have, in my case, a hypnosis session, but a hypnosis session is just a video. It's a half-hour long video, there's no difference between that and an instructional on how to grow tomatoes. It's the same medium. And it works just as well now as it did 15 years ago. The one big thing that has changed, that seems to be changing the game, that it would be really nice to have a new player in town, are chatbots, of course. Mm-hmm. And chatbots seem to be the newest, the best medium to convey a message with an insanely high amount of deliverability and insane low number of regulatory rules, like email had 15 years ago, right? Before it started getting all complicated. Right. So chatbots are cool, but for folks that are getting into chatbots, I would recommend that you use the chatbot to gather a name and email address first, so that you have that secondary layer of communication dialed in with your people in case chatbots go down. What do you think about texting? I think texting is great. It's a lot like chatbots. Of course, texting has been around for a very, very long time. But now with the introduction of chatbots, of the multi-stage language and branching logic that you can do, and with chatbot autoresponder sequences that are now available, for whatever reason, texting marketing technology, in my observation, got extremely stalled. And maybe I'm not paying close enough attention to it because I haven't been focused on it. I used to do a lot more texting just as reminders for webinars and such, mm-hmm. because but now with chatbots, I'm seeing chatbots that where you can program the chatbot to have a conversation through texting. And so that's where it becomes much more viable, because texting is essentially the exact that same thing as chatting in Facebook Messenger, and in some cases it's literally the same thing. You know, if you're using Facebook Messenger, if you're using your iPhone and you're, you know, chatting back and forth, it's all happening in the same application if you sync it up. So that's quite fascinating. You know, I still think that if you don't have a direct way of communicating with people, that you're kind of out of luck. I believe that people's email address is more stable at this point than people's cell phone number, which I was not expecting. I was expecting cell phone numbers to be more of a fingerprint and to stick around, but they don't. People jump ship on their cell phone number. I don't know. I was going to come up with a rude metaphor, but I'm just not going to do that. So the point is that people jump ship on their cell phone number a lot faster than I would expect. But email addresses, especially Gmail addresses, seem to stick.
Yeah,
they seem to stick around, but open rates are lower than they've been ever. Right?
I'm still amazed that some people have AOL emails still.
It's true. They do.
Hey, this was brilliant, and I'm actually in my karate studio office.
Nice.
I actually the original owner needed to retire. My kids train here.
Oh yeah.
So I bought the business.
Oh, cool.
About 6 months ago, and my brother-in-law, who just came in here, is actually he's a partner with me. He does all the instruction.
Oh, nice.
I came in with all the money, and so we split the time. I do the marketing. He does the instruction.
Where are you out of?
Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Nice.
Yeah.
I ran across Pennsylvania. Man, I'll tell you what, I do not like that chip and seal. Oh my gosh. That was like razors on your feet. No one told me that was there. It was so bad. I remember at one point I was running on this back road, and it had chip and seal down on it, and it had these fresh yellow the weather was beautiful. It was a late fall, and the air was nice, and people were burning from their wood stoves. It was all good, but I was on this fairly freshly resealed chip and seal road, and it had two bright yellow lines down the middle of it. And I was running like 20 miles that day, and it just ate into my feet, and I was limping in the middle of the road because the paint offered a little bit of extra soothing because it was a little smoother than the rest of the road, and there was no you couldn't pull your car over on the side of the road because it was like an embankment up the hill and embankment down the hill on both sides. So you had like 3 inches of gravel on the side before it went straight up, and there was nowhere to go. So I was like on the side of the road running, and I ended up, nobody was on the road. It was like me and my guy that was biking with me, like trying not to fall off his bike laughing because of how much I was suffering. And I was walking down the road, and I looked back, and I saw my footprints in the middle of the road on the lines, and there had these bloody footprints on the bright yellow paint on this black road, and I was just destroyed. It was rough. Thank you, Pennsylvania.
I remember seeing some of those pictures. You were in an RV.
Yeah, we had 2 Run Tellman Run RVs. We had a whole 8-person crew. It was pretty.
You had a hot tub or something in one of them.
I wish we had a hot tub. We did not have a hot tub. It was the RVs were not quite that nice, and they were expensive, but they weren't quite that expensive.
So how far did you get? You're in Vermont, right?
I am, but I started in New York City.
New York, okay.
I made it about 20%. And I believe I think it was 691 miles, about 691. And I had expected to make it a lot further than that.
Wow.
In a lot shorter time. It was difficult. It was a big challenge.
You gonna do it again?
Yeah, I might. But like, I'll probably come up with something different.
Yeah.
After my kids get a little older, embark on some completely ridiculous project.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I have to go finish dadding it for the evening. Thank you for
Yeah,
being
this was
with me,
fun.
Rob. Yep.
And let's keep in touch.
Yeah, Rob. And I guess enjoy karate school, man. How many students you guys got?
We have, I think, 30 or so. A couple of them dropped out because of sports, other sports that they were getting into.
Yep.
And I had to ban 2 kids because of their behavior outside of class.
Alas.
And so it's something new for me. I write books and I teach social media and I teach SEO and,
I hear shock collars go a long way. Shock collars.
This is kind of a secondary business and it'll get there. It's just, the studio is almost 50 years old.
Wow.
And I've been changing some systems. I've been changing prices and I've been upsetting some people, but you have to, because, it was treated as a hobby for so long.
Right.
It needed to be treated as a business.
Yeah, man. Well, direct response from martial arts schools totally works. Like you're not diving into uncharted territory. That's something that's been done over and over and over and over and over again. If you look in, Dan Kennedy stuff, and you just look at old copywriting and direct mail pieces and convert that into online messages, like you'll be off and running.
Right. Yep. Hey, thanks. Go do Mr. Mom stuff.
That's right. All right, dude. Have a great night. Nice connecting.
All right. See ya.
Later.